In the 1980s, a wave of mysterious house fires swept across the United Kingdom, leaving behind a trail of destruction and fear. Amidst the charred remains of countless homes, one object was often found unscathed. A mass-produced painting of a crying boy, his sorrowful eyes haunting all who gazed upon him. Was this simply a coincidence, or was something far more sinister at work? Was this painting, known as the Crying Boy, cursed? The Crying Boy painting, part of a series by Italian artist Giovanni Bragolin, also known as Bruno Amadio, was mass-produced and sold across Europe in the 1950s and 60s. Depicting tearful children in vivid emotional detail, these paintings became popular fixtures in many homes. But by the mid-1980s, a strange and unsettling phenomenon began to take hold across the UK. The legend of the curse began when a firefighter in Yorkshire allegedly told a journalist that he had noticed the painting at several fire sites where homes had burned down. Yet the crying boy remained untouched by the flames. Soon the story spread like wildfire, fueled by tabloid newspapers eager for sensational headlines. The tale of the cursed painting captured the imagination of a nation, sparking fear, superstition, and widespread panic. But was this truly a curse? What caused this mass hysteria, and why did so many people believe that a simple painting could hold such dark power? Let's begin by examining some of the key incidents that fueled this alleged curse. The phenomenon gained traction in September 1985, when an article in The Sun, a popular British tabloid, reported on a couple, Ron and May Hall, whose home in Rotherham had been destroyed by fire. They claimed that everything in their home was burned beyond recognition except for one item, a painting of a crying boy. As the story spread, more people began to come forward with their own eerie experiences. Within weeks, The Sun was inundated with letters from readers across the country, each telling a similar tale: homes ravaged by fire, and yet the crying boy painting always surviving unscathed. Reports poured in from places like Nottingham, Birmingham, and Sheffield, and soon there were claims of over 50 incidents tied to the painting. People began to believe that the painting itself was cursed, bringing tragedy and destruction wherever it hung. Some took drastic measures, destroying their crying boy paintings or giving them away in hopes of breaking the curse. Others went further, performing rituals, prayers, and even exorcisms, hoping to rid their homes of what they believed was an evil presence. The panic reached a fever pitch, and The Sun capitalized on the growing hysteria by organizing a mass burning of crying boy paintings. Thousands of copies were gathered and set alight in an attempt to rid the country of the curse once and for all. But even this event only added to the painting's mysterious reputation, as many still feared the curse might never be lifted. To understand the origins of the curse, we must first explore the man behind the painting, Giovanni Bragolin, also known as Bruno Amadio. Born in Venice, Italy in 1911, Bragolin was an artist of some repute. During the 1950s, he created a series of paintings known as Bambini Piangenti, or crying children, which depicted young boys and girls in moments of deep sorrow. These paintings were intended to evoke empathy and compassion, capturing the innocence and vulnerability of childhood. Bragolin's paintings quickly became popular, mass-produced and sold across Europe. They hung in living rooms, bedrooms and hallways, often seen as sentimental, emotional pieces that touched the hearts of many. But beneath the surface, a darker story began to emerge. Some claim that Bragolin had made a pact with the devil, that he had cursed his own paintings to bring misfortune upon anyone who owned them. Was there any truth to these rumors? Did Bragolin really curse his paintings, or were these stories mere fabrications born from the superstitions and fears of the time? To find answers, we must delve deeper into the folklore and legends that surround the crying boy. The legend of the crying boy. According to legend, the crying boy depicted in the painting was not a mere figment of the artist's imagination, but was based on a real child with a tragic story. Some versions of the tale claim that the boy was an orphan who had lost his parents in a fire. Others suggest he was a young street urchin who had witnessed unspeakable horrors. The most chilling version claims that the boy was a victim of abuse, whose spirit was somehow trapped within the painting. Another version of the legend suggests that the child's death was caused by a fire, and his grief-stricken spirit cursed the paintings, ensuring that they would bring flames and death to any who dared to display them. The story became even more compelling when it was claimed that every home that had suffered a fire had displayed one of these paintings prominently. Yet the truth behind these stories remains elusive. Did Bragolin intentionally infuse his paintings with malevolent energy? Or were these tales simply a way for people to make sense of a series of tragic coincidences? And how much did the media play a role in fanning the flames of panic? Media influence and the spread of the curse. In the mid-1980s, British tabloids played a significant role in spreading the story of the crying boy curse. Publications like The Sun and the Daily Mirror thrived on sensational stories that captured the public's imagination, and the crying boy painting was the perfect material. The more headlines screamed of the painting's curse, the more stories emerged of fires linked to it. Articles were filled with accounts from terrified homeowners, firefighters, and skeptics, each adding new layers to the mystery. The media's coverage created a feedback loop, amplifying fears and feeding off the growing panic. In many ways, the crying boy curse became a self-perpetuating phenomenon, a modern myth that thrived in the fertile ground of collective anxiety. But while the media played a crucial role in spreading the story, they were not solely responsible for the phenomenon. At its core, the crying boy curse tapped into deep-rooted beliefs and fears that have been a part of human culture for centuries. Theories and explanations, curses, coincidences, or urban legends. So, what could explain these incidents? Was it truly a curse, a haunted object, or something far less supernatural? Let's dive deeper into the most compelling theories. The most enduring theory is that the crying boy painting is cursed. Some have claimed that the boy in the painting was an orphan who died tragically in a fire. His spirit, filled with grief and anger, supposedly became trapped within the painting, bringing misfortune to all who owned it. This theory suggests that the curse manifests through the element of fire, causing homes to burn while the painting remains unharmed, as if mocking the very flames it is accused of conjuring. Others argue that the answer is far simpler. These paintings were mass-produced using materials that may have included flame-retardant coatings or varnishes, making them more resistant to burning. Thus, in the event of a fire, the painting might survive intact while everything around it is destroyed. But what if the answer lies not in the supernatural or the physical properties of the paintings, but rather in the human mind? Psychologists have long studied the power of belief and how it can shape human behavior. The crying boy phenomenon may be a textbook example of a self-fulfilling prophecy, where belief in a curse leads people to attribute random or coincidental events to that curse, reinforcing the belief even further. Once the idea of the curse took hold, any fire that occurred in the presence of the painting was immediately seen as proof of its malevolence. People began to look for connections, and in doing so, they often found exactly what they were looking for. The role of superstition and folklore. To truly understand why the crying boy painting inspired such fear, we must look at the broader context of superstition and folklore. Throughout history, people have believed in cursed objects, items imbued with dark powers, capable of bringing harm to those who possess them. The crying boy painting fits neatly into this tradition. Like other cursed objects, it became a repository for people's fears and anxieties. It allowed them to externalize their misfortunes, attributing random or inexplicable events to a malevolent force beyond their control. Folklore is filled with stories of cursed items, rings, mirrors, dolls, paintings that bring death, disease, or disaster to those who come into contact with them. These stories often serve as cautionary tales, warning people against greed, pride, or other vices, while also reinforcing a sense of order in a chaotic world. In many ways, the Crying Boy painting was simply the latest in a long line of objects to be labeled cursed, a modern echo of ancient beliefs. But could there be more to it than just folklore? Psychological impact. Why do we believe in cursed objects? So, why do we believe in cursed objects like the Crying Boy painting? What is it about these stories that capture our imagination and make them so compelling? Psychologists suggest that humans have an innate need to find meaning in the chaos. When faced with tragic or random events, we often look for patterns, explanations, or causes, even when none exist. A curse in this context provides a simple and satisfying explanation for otherwise inexplicable misfortune. The Crying Boy painting, with its haunting image of a child in distress, naturally invites emotional reactions. It taps into our empathy, our fear of the unknown, and our need to explain things that don't make sense. And once the idea of a curse is planted, it can spread quickly, fueled by the power of suggestion and social reinforcement. Belief in curses also serves a psychological purpose. It allows us to externalize our fears, our anxieties, and our uncertainties. By blaming a cursed object, we can make sense of misfortune, assigning blame to something tangible and seemingly controllable. The power of suggestion and mass hysteria. Mass hysteria is a psychological phenomenon where a group of people collectively experience irrational fear, anxiety, or behavior, often triggered by a shared belief or perception. It has been responsible for numerous strange events throughout history, from the Salem witch trials to modern-day rumors of school poisonings. The Crying Boy phenomenon can be seen as a form of mass hysteria. Once the idea that the painting was cursed took hold, it created a kind of collective panic. People became hyper-vigilant, noticing and reporting any strange occurrences linked to the painting, which in turn fed the hysteria. This feedback loop, where fear leads to heightened perception, which then reinforces the original fear, can create a powerful psychological effect. In the case of the Crying Boy, the fear of a curse became a reality for many, not because the painting was actually cursed, but because the belief itself was so strong. The idea of the curse became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Fires that might have been caused by faulty wiring, candles, or accidents were instead attributed to the painting. The more people believed in the curse, the more they saw evidence to support it. But while psychological explanations offer one perspective, could there also be a more scientific explanation for why the Crying Boy paintings seemed to survive fires when everything else was destroyed? Some experts suggest that the paintings were made with a type of varnish that rendered them flame-resistant. This varnish, commonly used in mass-produced artwork, could protect the painting from burning, even in a fire. Additionally, the way the paintings were framed with glass and a layer of protective backing may have further shielded them from direct exposure to flames. In fact, a study conducted in the 1990s showed that many of the Crying Boy paintings found at fire sites had been placed in such a way that they were less likely to be directly exposed to flames or heat. Positioned high on walls or behind glass, they were protected from the worst of the fire's effects, creating the illusion that they had somehow survived against all odds. But even with these scientific explanations, the idea of the curse persists. Why is that? Why do we cling to supernatural explanations even when logical ones are available? Decades after the initial reports, the Crying Boy curse remains a topic of fascination. It has inspired books, documentaries, and even films. But why does this story endure? Why are we still drawn to the idea of a cursed painting? The Crying Boy curse taps into universal human fears. The fear of the unknown, the fear of misfortune, and the fear of being powerless in the face of fate. It also speaks to our deep-seated belief in the supernatural, a belief that endures even in an age of reason and technology. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with information and often feel overwhelmed by events beyond our control, stories like the Crying Boy curse offer a way to make sense of chaos. They provide a narrative that frames our fears, giving us something to hold on to, even if that thing is an imaginary curse. Decades later, the Crying Boy painting remains a subject of fascination and debate. For some, it's an urban legend, a story that grew out of a mix of coincidence, media sensationalism, and the human need for explanation. For others, it's a reminder of forces beyond our understanding, a genuine mystery that defies rational explanation. Whether you believe in curses or not, the story of the Crying Boy painting highlights how deeply embedded our superstitions are and how quickly they can spread, even in an age of reason and technology. So what do you think? Is the Crying Boy painting truly cursed? Or is it just a coincidence, amplified by the power of suggestion and media hype? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have a story of your own about cursed objects or strange phenomena, we'd love to hear it. Whether a curse or a coincidence, the story of the Crying Boy painting reminds us that even in our modern world, the boundaries between the ordinary and the extraordinary are often blurred, and sometimes the oddest tales turn out to be true. Into the Odd, new episodes every week.